I would like to thank the organizing committee, fathers, dear participants. I'm a gynecologist and it is an honor to be here. I work in assisted reproduction. It is a great pleasure to be amongst you. The title of my speech was The Ideal Maternity in the Era of Postmodernism, but I don't know whether there is something that ideal. We all know that motherhood is it is a holy concept. We know that how complex it is for an embryo to develop and determine its sex, and no matter how skepticism we might be in towards God, the only thing we can do is indeed to admire the greatness of God's creation. Motherhood is the ultimate value that is the fundament of the entire world. I will insist on this slide that was shown by the previous speaker as well, and I will share my version, my view of this moment of conception. Everything starts with ovulation. It happens with most women, but it is not a simple thing. One ovary, one follicle is selected amongst the other. It dominates the others. And this one, the best one, will be ready for insemination. Too many sperms will fight for it, and only one will enter. So the previous speaker demonstrated the same process as well. It is a very complex and sensitive phenomenon. There are many parameters that can go wrong, but they don't go wrong. And this is repeated so easily throughout the ages and centuries. So if conception is successful within the fallopian tube, and if the fallopian tube absorbs this egg, because if the fallopian tube has a pathological problem, this will not be possible. So if it absorbs the egg, then division will begin. And if division goes well, then the fallopian tube will start pushing the embryo, the divided embryo, towards the uterus, where a number of other complex processes take place. And as Mr. Koyo said, they last at least 3 to 4 days, where there is a dialogue between the embryo and the mother with the uterus. And there are thousands of substances and factors that can go wrong. And if one thing goes wrong, then balance is lost. And those of us that are experts in this process, we can see how sensitive it is and how easily something can go wrong. So what happens in implantation? The organism receives it as a foreign body. So it sends the macrophage cells to fight it, but then it recognizes some cells that are similar, and the immune system is suppressed. So the uterus can embrace the embryo by creating dedicated mechanisms to keep it safe inside the uterus, the endometrium. That's a very sensitive process and very admirable process. And many things can change, many things can go wrong. For example, if the prolactin levels get really high, or if there is an infection, if there is anything, this sensitive balance can easily be lost. But so easily, this process happens again and again in nature. We know that the difficulties began after the fall of the first man. We need the exceptional operation of the endocrine and the reproductive system. We need well-operating fallopian tubes. We need ovulation to happen. Many women have very rich in eggs fallopian ovaries, but they do not ovulate. So we need the right anatomy without polypods, without other benign formations. The immune system should be working properly. Unfortunately, there are women who suffer from this hyper response of their immune system. So the entire body and organism of the prospective mother should change in order to accommodate the embryo. And there are too many changes that happen from the cardiovascular to the respiratory system, from the muscular system, the neurological system. Everything is dramatically influenced during pregnancy, this miracle of nature. Many women report that their heart is beating faster, their pulse is increased. It's more difficult for them to put up with fatigue, with tiredness. They have they are experiencing emotional changes that radically change their biological status. I don't want to further insist on this miracle of pregnancy. You are all familiar with it. All this happens in the era of postmodernism, in an era characterized by the elimination of fundamental values, the contempt to power, pluralism. Everybody is entitled to speak, and we have the obligation to listen to them. The explosion of technology, consumerism, and also what the first speaker said, racism. So that's the reality of our era, and within this era, the family structure has changed. There are no distinct roles for fathers and mothers. It depends on the socioeconomic status and participation of each family member. For example, if women offer more financially, maybe they have priority in their saying and many other changes. And of course, modern women have different opinions. Contrary to the past, they feel free to claim their rightful position. They seek to be autonomous and financially independent. Modern women have important positions in the socioeconomic life. Now women can also choose the partner of their liking, and they can choose when to reproduce. And of course, there is this fallacy that they can always reproduce in any way. And as you can see in the map, more and more Europeans believe that fertility problems begin after the age of 40, and that's a misunderstanding. This is due to poor provision of information, and people tend to believe that us fertility experts can resolve all problems. So this is why many women delay starting their effort to reproduce. So most Europeans get their first child after the age of 30. And of course, if we take into account the fall of the reproductive potential of a woman, we know that women are born with a certain number of eggs, and already after her teenage years, they have lost half the reserve, and at the age of 30, they have 1/4 of their original potential, and it keeps decreasing. On the contrary, the number of bad eggs keeps increasing, meaning those that lead to genetic problems. So up to the age of 30, there are about 3 out of 10 healthy eggs. At the age of 41, there is just 1 egg out of 10. And this is where fertility experts come in to assist women And that's a big bet we're up against. So all this in combination with the modern way of living, the elimination of partnership, the lack of dialogue, bad diet, lack of exercise, physical exercise, pollutants, environmental pollution, abuses, all this leads mathematically to infertility. And now women at an older age claim their fertility to our practices. Of course, this has risks both for the embryon and for the woman herself. It is much riskier to get pregnant at 40, 45, or even 50 compared to a woman who is 25 or 30 years old. So this is a global phenomenon, not only relevant to Greece. We know that 1 in 6 people are faced with infertility problems. We know that in Europe there is a huge drop in fertility. 7 million conceptions in 1960, less than 4 million in 2020. So this is relevant to the entire globe. Now, in vitro fertilization can help couples with fertility problems. More than 8 million children have been born in this way via IVF techniques. A few words about AI in IVF. AI keeps gaining ground. There are many studies that explore the efficacy of AI systems, how to choose to select the right embryo for the embryo transfer, because the modern world seems to be more effective. So there are various discs on which we cultivate the embryo, and we follow them through a CCTV circuit. Can you please play the video? So all these are embryons in a special tank, let's say. And all these embryons look alike each other. So we have dedicated software that select the best that can then be transferred into the mother, because we want to limit the number of unsuccessful implantations. Now, 2 years ago, I presented a study that has demonstrated that the chance of selecting the right embryo was 70%. And the audience was disappointed, and somebody said, well, why don't you use AI in your work? And I replied that I would rather give the right of existence to all embryons rather than selecting them. But this audience was not that prone to hearing positively that there is room to positively use AI in my job, but maternity, motherhood has changed. It keeps women become mothers at a later age. So I think that both the state and all of us should draw the attention of young couples to start at a younger age. Thank you.